Welcome to this explainer, everyone. Today, we're diving into a truly fascinating automotive journey. We're charting the evolution of the Toyota Crown from 1992 all the way to 2024. Drawing from some awesome short-form videos and automotive chronologies by MGC Tube, we aren't just looking at a simple facelift here. No way. We're breaking down a sweeping 32-year transformation of an absolute industry icon. We're going to track exactly how automotive design, engineering, and just the whole philosophy shift over 3 decades, taking this car from its domestic roots all the way to modern international markets, like Ecuador. Okay, let's dive right into this. You've got to wonder, how exactly does a classic car survive? And not just survive, but literally thrive for over 3 decades. We live in an automotive industry where consumer trends change faster than the seasons, right? So maintaining a vehicle's cultural and commercial relevance requires a really delicate balance. An automaker has to preserve the core identity that loyalists fell in love with while relentlessly adapting to the march of time and technology. And honestly, that's exactly the puzzle we're going to unpack today. To understand this epic journey, we're going to break it down into 4 quick chapters. 1. The classic 1992 Crown. 2. Bridging the Millennium. 3. The radical 2024 reinvention. And 4. 30 years of legacy. All right, kicking things off with Section 1. The classic 1992 Crown. So what's really interesting about this starting point is just how traditional, how incredibly conservative the approach to this luxury vehicle was. When you look back at the automotive landscape of the early 90s, this baseline was all about formal, upright styling. It had a heavy focus on a plush, super isolated ride comfort, and of course that unmistakable 3-box sedan silhouette. You know, the hood, the cabin, the trunk. It was clear, defined, and totally unapologetic. This domestic Japanese market focus is our anchor today. I want you to keep this concept in your head because every single radical change we see later is going to be measured directly against this resolute traditional foundation. Now, here's the crucial thing about carrying a legacy badge. Successfully sustaining a model across multiple decades means you are constantly walking a tightrope. You've got to keep your older traditional loyalists happy while simultaneously attracting a brand new generation of buyers who have completely different technological, environmental, and aesthetic expectations. The 1992 Crown wasn't just a piece of engineering. It was the steward of a massive corporate legacy that had to be handled with extreme care. Moving right along to Section 2, Bridging the Millennium. Let's move to 2008 and see how this builds. Bridging the turn of the century wasn't just flipping a calendar page. It was a complete paradigm shift in engineering. This transitional era is where you really start seeing the softening of those rigid 90s lines. The traditional approach started integrating early modern aerodynamics, much stricter global safety standards, and the very beginnings of digital infotainment. It was a vital foundational phase, and absolutely crucial for preparing the vehicle's identity for the massive disruptions that were about to hit the industry. 32. That is 32 years of continuous evolution separating our starting block and our finish line today. I really want you to think about how drastically consumer taste shifted in that window. I mean, it's practically a different universe. Back in 1992, luxury buyers prioritized quiet isolation, velour or traditional leather, and highly formal aesthetics. Fast forward to today, and consumers aggressively demand dynamic styling, hybrid and electric efficiency, expansive digital screens, and more often than not, a crossover or SUV-like stance. Surviving in this market means an automaker literally has to be willing to rewrite their own rulebook to match those shifting global expectations. And that perfectly sets up Section 3, the radical 2024 reinvention. And this comparison right here brilliantly illustrates the sheer, staggering scale of the transformation we've been building up to. When you weigh the traditional 1992 classic baseline directly against the multifaceted 2024 modern reinvention, it's almost hard to believe they share the same lineage. The 1992 model was entirely singular in its purpose. It was built to be a stately, comfortable sedan, full stop. The 2024 model, by stark contrast, represents a complete splintering of that identity into something far more complex. It's a multifaceted approach specifically designed to capture a modern audience that no longer wants just one thing out of their daily driver. Breaking down exactly what makes this 2024 version so radically different reveals 3 fundamental shifts. First up, a massive departure from traditional sedan design. That rigid 3-box shape of 1992, gone. It's replaced by elevated ride heights, fastback roof lines, and crossover styling cues. Second, an adaptation to modern global automotive trends. This model isn't just catering to a domestic traditionalist anymore. It's evolved to compete on a ruthless global stage where versatility and hybrid technologies are absolute requirements. And third, this represents a radical reimagining of the classic legacy. The engineers didn't just abandon the iconic nameplate. Instead, they aggressively stretched the very definition of what that name could mean. Finally, we land on Section 4, 30 Years of Legacy. We have traveled a massive distance today, from a deeply nostalgic 1992 classic to an absolute 2024 modern marvel. And as tracked by MGC Tube's Global Lens, which does an amazing job capturing this evolution in international markets and highlighting the brand's expansive reach into places like Ecuador, this 32-year journey isn't just an exercise in corporate design. It's a direct, rolling reflection of broader societal and global changes. We transitioned from an analog world where cars were defined by incredibly rigid classes to a highly digital, fluid world where the borders between a traditional sedan and a modern utility vehicle completely blur. This vehicle adapted, evolved, and reinvented itself simply because the world driving it demanded nothing less. Which brings us to our final, lingering thought for this explainer. If a storied legacy model had to transform this radically, this completely, just to survive the last 32 years, what on earth will the next 30 years look like for automotive design? With the rapid rise of autonomous driving, fully electrified platforms, and artificial intelligence integration, will the cars of 2054 even remotely resemble what we drive today? Or will they force yet another radical reinvention?